having streaming problems. Hold on one second. So this gentleman, and I don't know his name, I found him on TikTok, and unfortunately, the way that these things are, I can't go back and figure out who he is. So if anyone has the answer to this, I believe he's a minister, but I don't know that. And he asked this question. He says, imagine a piece of sand gets into your eye. It causes irritation. It causes your eye to secrete fluids. And then if you don't do anything about it, it could cause infection and then blindness. He said that's just a speck of sand in your eye. He said, on the other hand, a oyster gets a speck of sand in it, and it causes the oyster irritation, and then it causes the oyster to secrete fluid, and it will create a pearl around it, and it will do what it can to cause itself comfort from the discomfort. And his question, and you might have heard it, was, did the sand cause the blindness? Did the sand cause the pearl? And the answer was, sort of. That it wasn't the sand itself, but the sand caused the human eye, or the sand caused the pearl to do what it naturally does, which would produce either blindness or a pearl. And then what he says is, I want you to think about the people in your life as the irritant. That the person in your life is an irritant, and what you do with their irritation, that is not fixed. That other people in our lives are the irritants, and they cause the world to see, they cause to be produced what is the naturally occurring substance in ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Can you imagine that the next person who annoys you, this might be pushing it a little far, can you imagine that the next person who annoys you is just a piece of sand, and how you deal with them is the important thing?
The metaphor.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Very good.
Could we secrete fluid and spit in their face?
That was exactly that's exactly what my notes said we're going for here.
But metaphorically.
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 That things happen to us, and we're going to get to this. I think we won't get to this until next week. But that thing, I want you to start to see that there are, and I want to thank Al, who's on today, who helped me to see this, is that there are actions that occur. And those can cause us to have feelings. And the action that occurred to us can cause us to have thoughts. And sometimes we have a feeling, and the feeling causes us to have a thought, or the feeling causes an action to occur to us, or it can start with our thoughts. We have a thought which causes us a feeling, or we have a thought that causes us to behave in a world in a certain way. I'm just going to drop this here as a thought for us to hold on to, and we're going to play more with this next week. I don't think we're going to have time to get to it this week, and that's your reward for coming back next week. Oh, also news about next week. I hope you're all ready for this. But next week, you see all those diplomas that I have over there sitting on my table? They're consciously not put on the wall because I didn't want anyone to think that I'm that attached to my diplomas on the... But I will be getting another one.
Oh, yeah.
Next week, I will be getting a honorary doctorate of divinity.
All right.
So next Saturday, when we have this service, I expect a respect from everybody.
Uh-oh.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
I'm not sure I'm going to get it, but let's just keep things as they are, and we're perfectly fine. And there was something, you had your hand up earlier, and I've had this pit in my stomach that I forgot to get all of what you had to say, and I apologize if you said it already, and I seem to have missed it. Are you in the clear, Anne?
This Ann?
Yes, you.
No, I'm cool.
Okay,
I got it.
I apologize. Got a little bit lost here. Okay. I have my handy dandy outline, which so far we're almost following. So congratulations, team.
Wow.
I know. Last week, something happened that in the email I sent about the service, I said in the invitation to last week's service, I wrote, the week previous was a wonderful service. It was probably one of our best services that we've had in a long time. Therefore, the service that's coming up, meaning last week's service, probably won't be so good. How many of you have ever done a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Uh-oh.
I probably have.
Yeah, we've all done. There's a theory I learned in graduate school for education. If you don't know, I after I left being a full-time working rabbi, I became a high school mathematics teacher. I got a degree in education, a master's degree in education. And one of the things that I learned about is something in schools called the Pygmalion effect. And the Pygmalion effect goes like this. If you tell a teacher on the down low and you say, hey, this kid, it's not in their file, but this kid is off the charts gifted. Now you say this about a child, it doesn't matter which child it is, and it doesn't matter how gifted the child is or isn't. If you tell the teacher that this student is gifted, well, I'm pretty sure we don't need to do the study and I don't need to tell you about it because you know exactly what happens.
Yeah.
What happens?
He's treated as
treated better.
That student starts performing really, really well. And then scientists, because they're scientists, said, well, let's test it out with the opposite. And the same thing seems to happen if you tell the teacher, this kid has got some behavioral issues and there's something neurologically just messed up in this kid. Guess what happens in that classroom? We can affect what happens in the classroom. We can affect how the child is treated by the expectations that are put on that child.
It has to do with respect.
Has to do with respect.
Teacher has to respect the child.
Right? I'm open and honest that sometimes in my parenting, I am looking for one of my children to be acting in a certain way. And guess what happens if I'm looking for it? I do it to Jane too. Right? I'm thinking, well, that's just how Jane is, and she's going to notice this, and she's going to say this. And when she does, I think, well, look, that proves my point. That we have expectations about how things will go, and then we see those expectations. And my question is, can we game the system? Can we game the system and change our expectations so that we live in a world that has a little more love in it, can we game the system? If I gamed the system and I caused the service to be a little befuddled because I said, well, this one's not going to be very good, and I did that, well, can I do the opposite? Can I say, well, this is going to be one of the best services ever? And obviously there have to be some limits. I don't think I have the ability to manifest just about anything I imagine. But I do have some ability. Now my question is, what of this can we and what of this can't we control? Go ahead, Carol.
I think that's what religion was doing when it said at the beginning, we are made in the image of God. The trouble is, it said it, and we weren't open to really ask the question, what do you mean by that? But the fact is, we are told from the beginning how worthwhile we are, and we somehow cannot retain that.
So so help me understand that, Carol. So that you're saying that it is possible, we just totally stink at it.
We were told that we were made in the image of God.
Uh-huh.
It's better than telling a teacher that this kid is gifted. Watch out, this kid's going to be really great.
Oh my gosh, I hear what you're saying.
That.
We
have so many gifts. We haven't begun to use all the powers that have been given to us.
So you're saying that we are that student.
Yes.
We are that student who is unbelievably talented. I mean, there's I think it's Marianne Williamson who said it's not what we can't do that frightens us, it's what we can do that frightens us.
Yeah.
I'll take thoughts from other people as well, if you got. Go ahead, Bob.
I think in part what I'm getting from it is that when I put an expectation out there that I am limiting myself in what that expectation is. But if I say that I have an expectation that this is going to work out, that it's more likely going to work out because of my participation in it.
Right. If we go along with it. Wonderful. Go ahead, Ray. Thank you, Bob.
Well, going back to what Carol said about made in the image of God, no one has ever seen God. So how do we know what that image is?
Okay.
Is it not better just to be accepting and loving of all of us and to be supportive for each of us to do the best that we can?
Amen. I would love us all to do that. And to me, that sounds godly. I don't know that the image of God means that it's a physical manifestation that we look exactly like God, but we have godliness within us. Of course, I love it. Go ahead, Meg, and then Avon, and then Betsy.
I recently came across a quote that's slightly off from this conversation, but it's about expectations. And the quote is that expectations are premeditated resentments.
Wait, what?
Expectations are premeditated resentments.
Oh, no. Okay, wait, no, Meg.
No,
now.
I expect my husband to set the table for dinner, and he doesn't. Now that pisses me off. It doesn't really, but
I got you. But Meg, hold on a second. Could I not have an expectation that I don't know what Meg's going to say, but I'm sure I'm going to love it? I don't have any resentment in that.
Unless she doesn't say it.
I don't care what she says. I have my love blinders on, my rose-colored glasses, and I expect everything that she says is going to be great.
I'm so happy you think that way.
I do. No, but I do. I do try to, like, I know Avon's going to say something in a moment, and I have an expectation that that's going to be additive. That's going to be something that, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know how this works, but I'm pretty sure that if I had the inner orientation that what the fuck do these people have to say and it's just all gonna suck, that the service would really take a turn.
Yeah.
But my expectation, and now Avon, not too much pressure on you, but my expectation that what Avon's going to say is going to add to this conversation, I think benefits me and the group.
But that's an expectation that has been met.
Not yet. Avon ain't said nothing.
No, but I mean, that's why you don't have a resentment. Okay, you think what I'm going to say is brilliant, and maybe what I'm doing is singing "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," whatever that thing is.
Yeah.
That is not brilliant. So then you might have a resentment because I didn't follow.
Okay, I'm thinking that I'm happily delusional, being being. When we're going to get to optimism and hope, that's where we're going. So this is all on target. So thank you, Meg. Let's find out. And Avon, now no pressure.
It was about optimism, because when you initially described, I went, oh, I know someone like that. Is that my sister, who I love very much, is super optimistic, to the point where sometimes I, as a less optimistic person, are like, you're a bit naive here.
Yeah, right.
You know, but specifically, she thinks that everyone is going to be nice to her, and that everyone has good intention.
Right.
And I've watched it get her into trouble. I've watched her come home real sad because she thought that guy wanted to be her friend, and that is not what he wanted from her. And at the same time, I am regularly surprised by how deeply kind people are to her.
Right.
Just because she expects them to be.
Right.
I am blown away about how much more regularly, I'm like, how much more I'm suspicious of people who she was right. We're just genuinely chill and nice. And I'm blown away by how the world bends to her.
I agree with you.
Expecting everyone to be good to her and to have good intentions, 8 times out of 10 works out.
Right. I'm with you. And thank you for proving Meg wrong. No, no. Sorry, Meg.
What else is new?
Yeah.
What else is new?
It reminds me even of something that my buddy Larry says. He says, I would rather have hope and be occasionally wrong than never have it and always be right.
I have asked her about her optimism, and what she said was, well, I would rather be a bit disappointed than be mean to people in advance. Assuming the worst of people.
Amen.
Mean in her mind. Like, that's just a mean thing to do. If that's rude to assume that someone's up to something bad. That's
Thank you, Ava.
A horrible way to judge people. And I'm like,
I think that we're getting towards the moral of today's story. Thank you. And let's hear from Betsy, and then Al, and then Rita. Thank you, Avon.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking about that old story about the religious group that lived off in the mountains or something, and their numbers had dwindled, and they were not prospering. And he went off into the forest to consult these wise people, and he said that he told them about the problems, and they said, okay, I will tell you the secret. And the secret was that one of your followers is the Messiah.
Yeah. Right. And if you are in the Religion Outside the Box Playhouse subscription, you know that the Religion Outside the Box players did a production of this story via Zoom a few years ago. It included floating nuns and heads above. It was a fantastic production. And Rita, I will ask you when we are up to announcements to tell us more about the Stone Soup production. But you're absolutely right. If you treat everyone as though they are the image of God, right? How about this? If you don't believe that treating everyone as though they are the image of God is going to work, can you try it for an hour? Let's see what happens. Al, go ahead. Thank you, Betsy.
Yeah, the thing that occurs to me about all this is that kind of the mental, emotional, and spiritual judo that I have to do is realize that Meg is 100% right, and you're 100% right, Rabbi.
Well, I wasn't actually disagreeing with Meg, but you're right. It is exhausting.
It's exhausting.
It is. Well, let me. I'm going to change that. it is at first exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets easier the more you practice it.
Yep.
It is
like, what you said about the expectations is, they can set up resentments. If you can practice the forgiveness, though, that you were talking about, then the resentment is decreased. But
Right.
there's still some limit to how optimistic you want to be, because you may be taken advantage of. There's a kind of a grounding to it and a balance to it that's very difficult, and you can't, frankly, put it into words, in my opinion.
I think it's like Avon's sister. Do we all know somebody who is just that person who is always a little bit more filled with sunshine and joy than we are? And at the end of the day, would you rather be more like them or more like you?
I like who I am.
I was going to say, I like who I am too. Thank you very much. I'm just
okay. Yeah. Maybe I could say be a little bit more like them. We get a little bit more. Go ahead, Rita.
Well, I do tend to see the good in people, and I have been criticized for it. By you even, Rabbi Brian. Not criticized, sort of, oh, there she goes again. And it's that part I don't like at all. But nonetheless, what I have found, and I've been around a lot longer than anybody here, I bet, is that when I'm looking for the good, I usually get it.
Right. Say that again, Rita. When I'm looking for the good, I usually get it.
Right.
And the flip side of that, when I'm looking for what an asshole my son can be, I can find that. Yeah. And Rita, we're not going to play the age Olympics. We got a lot of old people here. This is a religious. this is a religious organization, and hey, let's face it, religion tends to collect a lot of the older folks.
Smarter ones.
That's because with age comes wisdom and the idea that we can do something about the predicaments we're in. Let me bring up the quote about hope and optimism from Václav Havel. And he says that there's a difference between the two. He says this: hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well. That's optimism. Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. I'm going to need a little bit of help, folks, with that second part. Hope is not optimism. I get that first part. All right, fine. Hope is not optimism. Hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but hope is the certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out.
It doesn't say certainty, it says conviction.
Say that again. That
it doesn't say certainty, it says hope. It does say certainty. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Oobies. So sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. One of the beautiful things is, hey, we're all human. We all make mistakes, and that's perfectly fine.
Thank you. Yep.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I thought about this. I was intrigued when you put this out here, and I was thinking about the source of this quote was really a great statesman, a philosopher, a very self-realized human being.
Right.
And so that creates sort of a high bar to begin with, in terms of even having the capacity to hope. So my sense is I'm always wondering, what does it take in order to have hope? And everything we're talking about today.
That's a great question. What does it take to have hope?
Yeah. I think because certainty, I think we all agree in this religious system, doesn't really exist theologically.
Well, we're saying that certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it works out. That we have certainty that it makes sense regardless of how it works out.
Yeah, but that takes an antecedent to get to that place.
Okay. So
how do you get to the place where you can trust people and think, and 85% of the time, like this person was talking about her sister. 85% of the time, life is pretty good. She's pretty balanced.
Right.
How do you get to that, to be able to be that?
Well, we have an answer coming from Harold. Thank you, Harold, for having an answer. You might not. I don't know. I have certainty that it will make sense.
I got a case study for you. If you look
Go
at
for
the
it.
current situation, if you look at the current situation we're in, I told you earlier in the beforehand that our son-in-law had brain surgery. He has a tumor in his brain, and it was removed. And the surgeon said, well, this kind of a tumor is not normally one that happens by itself. It normally happens because of a cause. So he said, yeah, we think he's probably got lung cancer. So now you look at it and you say, he's got to recover from the brain surgery. Then he's got to go to the oncologist, and you probably have to have radiation, chemo, maybe even more surgery. And you look at all that and you say, I wonder how it's going to come out.
Right.
And hope is that it's going to come out to some resolution. And
that's
this
quote. It's not the conviction that it will turn out well, but it's the certainty that it will make sense regardless of how it turns out.
So you look at all the facts in the track record, and there's only two resolutions.
Right.
One, he recovers from it, and the other, he dies from it. So we understand all of this, and hope is that thing that says, boy, I hope he doesn't die in a car wreck or something like that, because he's got enough on his plate. So I think that's a pretty good case study in what you're talking about.
Thank you for bringing that. Thank you. I'm sorry that that's in your life, obviously, but thank you for bringing it to us. We will be getting to our prayer list in a moment, and Joe, please make sure we add Harold and Connie's nephew to it. Melissa, you have a thought, hopefully. Yes, go ahead.
When you on the quote that there's certainty, I was reminded of the verse that I've been given my whole life, is that all things work together for the good. And so even if it's a bad thing, somehow it'll work together for good in my life.
Right. That takes a mindset. That takes a powerful mindset to be able to hold on to that.
Melissa was one of the floating nuns.
Yes. I'm the ghost of Sister Teresa.
Yeah.
Joe, go ahead, and then Bob. Thank you, Melissa.
Well, I just want to rescind my oops about the word certainty, because now that I've had a minute to process the whole quote,
okay,
I'm going back to, I'm not sure that I personally can embrace the word certainty, because certainty means 100% of the time, all of the time, every time. Mm-hmm. And I am absolutely certain that as a human, I can't do that.
Yeah. So I think if I'm looking at the quote, is that when we have that certainty, we have hope. And we don't always have that certainty, we don't always have hope. That's all right. Bob, go ahead, and then we'll move along.
Yeah, I think sometimes we have a tendency to over process something, and maybe that's not the right word, but that I guess I look at it that if I get up from my chair and that I start to walk somewhere, I have the hope that my foot is going to land on the right place. And that I think that if we don't demonstrate some form of hope, that we can't exist. And that when I work on anything, when I click on my computer, whatever, I have a hope that it's going to have a result. And so I think that hope is something that is, in my opinion, inbred in us, that when we do an action, or when I say something, I hope it's going to have the right effect.
Right. I like it, and that's what this whole service is that I'm not exactly. It's not the conviction that the service is going to turn out well, but I have certainty that in something will make sense out of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you for pointing out what we're doing here is this quote.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have okay, and let's turn our focus for a moment over. Joe, you have our list of folks for whom we want to say some prayers on this day. Hold them in love and light.
Okay. The love and light folks are Donna, Colleen, Maureen, Jean, Diane, Andrew, Mara, Sandy, Doug, Jane, Victoria, Baby Strong, Paris, Virginia, Tamana, Lena, Mondi's brother, James Wilson, Stephanie, Jenny, Francis, April, Jill, Iggy, Steve, Andrew, Krista, Pacey Dumas and his family, Abbas, Lena, Nathali, Harold and Connie's nephew, Andy Voshnik, Mary Ellen, Mary Wolf, Christina Roth, Eloise, John, Kim Haslinger, Sarah C., Beverly Kennedy, Roger M., and the Cook family. And I don't think it said Chris H., so I'm adding Chris H.
Well, thank you. Let's take a minute at a time, starting now, to hold these people in our hearts. Well, thank you all. Let me make a few announcements. My first announcement is this one, as always. It's okay not to be okay. There is a lot of pressure in this world that we should be fine all of the time, and that's too much. We can't be perfect all the time. It is okay to not be okay. Other announcements. There's a Shekinah group. I am out of focus, like literally. There we go. There's a Shekinah group. If you want to talk about the God word and you have a hankering to do so, please make sure that somebody in the chat knows your email address, and there are meetings of the Shekinah group that go on Tuesday at this same Zoom room at 11 a.m. Pacific time. There's Rabbi Brian's office hours. Everyone is invited to that. It's a casual, non-broadcast group of people. And then Rita, do you have something that you want to tell us about the Religion Outside the Box Playhouse?
Yes, theater outside the box
is
what I like to call it. We are in the midst of creating something called story theater, which takes just the skeleton of a myth or a story, and then in rehearsals and through improv, creating a script. Sometimes it's kind of strange. I mean, Stone Soup, we have an ardent vegan that we have to work with, but it's fun.
And just have people, if they want to be involved in a little bit of fun theater outside the box, they should put a thing in the chat and get in touch with Rita, please.
Well, and one more thing, though. We are having a gathering at 11. So if you put something in the chat right now and you're interested, I'll send you the link.
Wonderful.
And if you can't make a gathering, this is going to take a while. So don't worry about it. Just let me know you're interested and I will send you a link.
Thank you, Rita.
If not today, next time.
Can I just add, Rita, because everyone might not know you're in the Pacific time zone.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
11 a.m. Pacific.
Same time here. So 2 hours and 10 minutes from now. And I want to make a special shout out to my friend Ann, because the Religion Outside the Box Clubhouse, which we had on Mighty Network, and it was just a bloated system, and the thing on Facebook, we are so close to being up to having beta testers, and we're redoing the Religion Outside the Box Clubhouse, and it has just been, oh my gosh, you have no idea what kind of technical problems there are behind the scenes on a web page. I happen to have a little bit of ability on the web, and would be kind to not tell you, but I will tell you that I play with some settings and sometimes mess things up a little bit. I do a little bit more good than harm, but sometimes it gets a little bit annoying. So thank you, Ann, for your patience and work. I want to give us one more thought towards this hope. And this is a thought that a new thought for me, and it came from a conversation I had with Al, and it goes like this: that if you can't get to hope, if you can't find hope, that there's a space between just there's like an anchor or a rope that leads towards hope, of curiosity. That something happens, and instead of just accepting it and being downhearted about it, instead of thinking of it as fated and fixed, that if we have a moment of curiosity about the thing that has occurred, that the curiosity opens us up to hope. I wonder why that thing happened is a curious stance. And that a stance of curiosity might be something that elevates us and pushes us towards having hope. Okay.
I have a big question.
Yeah.
Evan gave me something that I'm sure includes his email or her, in any case. But I can't figure out how to do it. Just send it to me at my own email if you don't want to put it here. And
okay, Rita, put your email in the chat so that people.
It's there.
Okay, then we should have fixed that. And the other email that is in the chat for Christina, that is for the Shekinah group. If you want to find out more about that.
Yeah, well, I've got that link too.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, folks, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say thank you for joining me today. I'm going to shut down the recording. So if you would take a moment to wave goodbye to all the people who are watching. And